an all-American woman.
She was a beautiful young gal, and she had a great personality.
She was amazing. She was so kind and so caring. She was my sister. She was my everything.
Is found murdered in her bedroom.
She had been strangled quite violently.
Whoever the killer was crushed the victim's neck.
Police hunt for the culprit.
I had in my mind who committed the crime.
We were convinced that he was our guy.
But the prime suspect slips from their grasp.
I don't get it. Did he really get away with it?
Decades later, leaps in forensic science reignite the investigation.
We're not giving up on the case. Is there a smoking gun? We got to find it.
I figured that if this case could be solved, it could be solved now.
And new evidence leads to a killer no one saw coming.
It was shocking. It was unexpected. And guess what? We have a new suspect.
I was stunned. I was like, really?
In the early morning hours of June 6, 1980, the peaceful suburb of Woods Cross, Utah, is shaken by a frantic 911 call.
Emergency? Oh my God! What's the problem? My wife's been killed. I just got home from work. Okay, I'll see. What's your name? Steve Strong. Please hurry.
Woods Cross had never had a homicide. This was the first one, and it definitely was not something we were used to.
Police respond to the modest home on the outskirts of Salt Lake City.
Well, I got called to respond to this house that they'd said there had been a homicide. So I went into the bedroom area where the victim was, laying on the floor, kind of laying up against the bed. She appeared that she was in her sleeping clothes, just a little t-shirt and a pair of panties. First thing that I noticed, she had bruising and scratches on her neck area that looked like she had been strangled, and been strangled quite violently. In fact, I believe that she had put up quite a struggle and quite a fight. Torn fingernails and some bruising on her legs and her feet. It was an indication she fought pretty hard. It looked like she had been knocked off of the bed and onto the floor. 2 or 3 of the rungs in the bed that had been broken out. So it was obvious that there was a pretty good struggle had taken place there.
Police searched the rest of the house, looking for clues to what happened.
And looking around, I didn't believe that there could have been a robbery or anything of that nature, because everything else was in place.
It did not look like a robbery or theft. This looked more like a personal attack. This looked more like that she was the target of her killer.
Investigators turned to Steve Strong, the man who had called 911. He tells police the victim is his wife, 25-year-old Karen Strong.
Talking to Steve, he was kind of hysterical, just very upset that his wife was dead.
Steve worked at a manufacturing plant on the graveyard shift.
He said everything was fine when he left the house the night before to go to work. He worked the night shift till about 7 in the morning. And when he got home, he walked into the bedroom and saw his wife.
While investigators continue their hunt for clues, police inform Karen's family of the tragic news.
I was at work at the phone company. My stepmother called me and said, "Your sister's dead." I said, "What? What happened?" She goes, "We don't know yet." That was heart-wrenching. I wanted to know what happened to my sister.
Karen Saltzgiver was born in Bountiful, Utah in 1954, the oldest of 3 children.
Karen and I were 5 years apart. My parents divorced when we were younger, and that's always rough on kids. It was a struggle. But Karen was always there, playing mom, and I think it was just her nurturing instinct. She was amazing. She was strong.
In 1973, Karen married Steve Strong right out of high school at the age of 18.
Karen and Steve were high school sweethearts. Karen was very outgoing, very fun, very loving, and Steve was very quiet. She saw something in him. They used to go four-wheel driving a lot and up in the mountains a lot. It was a sense of freedom for her, and Karen loved nature.
Over the next 7 years, the young couple worked hard to build a life of their own.
Steve worked at a machine shop. Karen worked in accounting for the state of Utah. And they had an apartment in North Salt Lake, and then they bought a house in Woods Cross. It was a family-oriented place, and it was a new development. She was so excited because she got a house and a good job. You know, she had her Camaro and yellow. Yellow was her favorite color. It seemed like her life was on the right path.
Karen's seemingly perfect marriage had a troubling hidden side.
Steve liked to drink, and I think that's what caused a lot of the problems in their marriage. When Steve wasn't drinking, he was very quiet, but when he drank, yeah, there was a whole nother side of him that came out. He was mean. What I witnessed with Steve was a lot of screaming and yelling, and then he'd leave. Mostly what I witnessed with Steve with my sister was the aftermath. She had bruises, and Karen got good at hiding the bruises with makeup, but it's like, you can see them. You know, to me, I didn't understand. Karen defended Steve all the time. He's just going through a bad time. Things are rough. You know, he'll get over it. It's okay.
But 3 months prior to Karen's murder, something changed between her and Steve.
Karen finally had enough, told Steve she wanted a divorce, and I thought, yes, yes. I just wanted the best for her, because she wanted that for me.
But before Karen can move on, her life is brutally cut short.
My world had just fallen apart. My world was crushed. She was my everything. She was my sister, my protector. She was my best friend.
As Coco struggles to come to grips with Karen's death. Back at the crime scene, police continue their search for clues to who may have attacked Karen during the night.
There was no indication that anybody had broke into the house. The next door neighbor said that she had heard nothing. Steve had calmed down by that time. He said that he had found the doors locked, and when he got home, used his key and went into the house.
As Steve is being questioned, Coco arrives looking for answers.
The police didn't give me any details on exactly what happened. They did say that she had been strangled. Then they brought her body out in a black bag, and oh, that just tore me up. It's like, that's my sister, don't put her in there. Steve was sitting there, and I just looked at him like he finally did it. There was no doubt in my mind that Steve did it.
When Coco got to the house there, the first thing she said, he did it, he finally did it, he killed her.
Anytime you have an incident like this, always start with the husband.
Coming up, detectives discover a tangle of relationships.
Steve said that everything was going great with them. It was pretty obvious that it was not.
Failing the polygraph was pretty damning.
Before their hunt for a killer produces a jaw-dropping twist.
An innocent person just wouldn't flee.
We were worried if we came to the door, he was going to shoot us.
And a new suspect with a dark past emerges.
He raped a girl, and then he stabbed her with a screwdriver and left her for dead.
Who is this guy, and how did he know my sister?
Police in Woods Cross, Utah are investigating the murder of 25-year-old Karen Strong. Her sister, Coco, has told police she suspects Karen's husband, Steve Strong, is the one that killed her.
Coco had been really close with Karen, and they talked a lot, and she had expressed that Steve was a heavy drinker, and when he got drunk or he'd been drinking, he got mean, he got abusive. Coco didn't like him at all.
Detectives learn how Karen had decided to end things with Steve 3 months ago.
She filed for divorce, and then she moved out to my stepmother's house.
Coco says that Karen was only at the house the night she was killed because she felt sorry for Steve.
It was his birthday and their anniversary. Steve had called her and said, can you come out and we'll just have dinner together? And she did, because of her kind heart.
Coco believed that their relationship was over, although Karen agreed to come back and just kind of stay with him for a couple of days.
Recently separated from Steve, Karen had a new suitor named Buff.
Karen told me a little about Buff, that she met this guy that was really different, and he treated her really kind. And I don't know if she thought it would go anywhere, but I know it meant the world to her. He showed her that she could be treated decent and that she deserved it.
Coco said that Steve was also a very jealous person, and in her mind, was sure that he had killed her.
I said, how could it be anybody else? It was, it was Steve.
Detectives confront Steve Strom about Coco's allegations.
He consistently stated that he had a good relationship with his wife and that there was no abuse.
Steve felt that the only reason that they were getting a divorce, it was his drinking. He said that they had worked things out and that they were going to get back together, and she was not going to go through with the divorce.
Investigators ask Steve to account for his movements leading up to when he last saw Karen alive.
Steve said that he and Karen had gone out to dinner earlier that evening, and then they'd come home and watch TV, and then he got ready and left for work.
If Steve is telling the truth, Karen was killed sometime after midnight when Steve left for work and before 7 a.m. when he returned home to find her body. Detectives ask if the doors were locked during that time, how did Karen's killer get into the house?
Steve gave us the name of about 4 or 5 people that she might have opened the door for, but had indicated probably the one that she would really open the door for after she went to bed would have been Buff.
Steve admits that he knew Karen had been dating Buff while they were separated.
Steve said that the relationship with Karen and Buff was over and that they were getting back together and gonna make another go of their marriage.
With nothing concrete to hold him, detectives let Steve go. After police release Steve, the news that Karen was murdered spreads through Karen's family.
It just broke everybody's heart. My mom, that was her oldest daughter. She couldn't deal with it. She just shut down and shut off. It was just heart-wrenching, and it was something that was so surreal. I was trying to wrap my head around, she's really gone?
As Karen's loved ones reel from the murder, detectives head to the factory where her husband, Steve, works as a machinist to confirm his timeline and verify his story.
I talked to the supervisor and got copies of his time card, and as far as anybody there could remember, he was on his machine the entire time.
Despite confirming that Steve was at work when he said he was, investigators cannot dismiss their suspicion of him without a better idea of when Karen had been killed.
That timeline was very important to the case because we'd be able to tell who had opportunity during that time.
As detectives continue their investigation at Steve's workplace, one of Steve's co-workers they speak with is 29-year-old Ed Owens.
Steve Strom had named Ed Owens as one of the individuals that Karen would have allowed in. Ed and Steve were not only co-workers, but they had become friends. They socialized together, socialized with their spouses. Both of them liked to drink, and so they oftentimes did it together.
There was an incident where Steve would end up so intoxicated that Ed and Karen had to take Steve home and carry him into the house and put him to bed.
Ed tells detectives that he was working the shift before Steve arrived that night, but had left the plant for his meal break around 8 p.m.
Ed had said that he had left work and then gone to the local bar to get his lunch, and he started drinking with some friends till they closed the bar, and then went out in the parking lot and continued drinking.
Ed came back to the plant about 4:30 in the morning. He was obviously intoxicated. Steve had actually offered Ed a ride home, but Ed had refused and drove home intoxicated.
As investigators talk to Ed, something about his appearance draws their attention.
I did notice that he had some scratches on his arm and close to his eye on the nose.
Detectives question Ed about the scratches. Could he have been scratched while he attacked Karen?
He explained those as he worked on the lathe, and there was the shavings. He was always kind of getting scratches or cuts on his thing. Talked to the supervisor at his work, and he indicated that happens quite frequently.
Just to be sure, detectives ask Ed's coworkers to confirm he was drinking with them the night of the murder.
So I interviewed the people he was hanging out with, and they all stated that he was there, and he didn't have any motive as far as I could determine.
With Ed's alibi confirmed, investigators turn their attention to the other man in Karen's love life, her boyfriend, Buff. Did he have motive for murder?
Steve Strom told the police they were reconciling So then we have to begin to question Karen's termination of that relationship with Buff.
If they were going to get back together, Buff would have been upset about that. His attitude might have been, if he couldn't have her, nobody else would.
Less than a day after 25-year-old Karen Strom is found strangled to death, police in Woods Cross, Utah have ruled out her husband's friend, Ed Owens, as the killer.
There was no indication that Ed had been involved in the death of Karen.
But despite verifying his alibi, detectives do keep Karen's estranged husband, Steve Strom, on the suspect list.
Her sister Coco talked about how abusive he had been and that Karen needed to get out of that relationship.
Now, investigators want to speak with the man Karen started dating shortly after separating from Steve.
Buff Bangerter was a man who Karen Strom had had some degree of a relationship with, and so, of course, law enforcement had reason to talk to Buff.
Detectives begin the interview with the 35-year-old mechanic by informing him of Karen's murder.
He seemed upset when he found out that she had been killed.
Then, Buff stuns investigators by revealing just how serious his relationship with Karen had become.
According to Buff, they had wanted to get married, and it was Buff that persuaded her to go back to see Steve to be sure that what she wanted to do was get the divorce.
Detectives ask Buff where he was on the night Karen was killed.
Buff stated he was at home that whole evening and he would not have harmed her in any way. And he also made the comments that he thought it was Steve. According to Buff, it was pretty obvious that he was very angry about Buff's relationship with Karen.
Even with no one to back up his alibi, police decide to let Buff go.
We didn't eliminate him entirely, but after we interviewed and talked to Buff, we felt pretty confident that he was not the one who had committed that crime. I couldn't place anyone else having done the crime except for Steve. He remained my #1 suspect.
While they wait for crime lab analysis to be completed, detectives keep digging into the people Karen may have let into the house the night she was killed.
I interviewed each of the individuals who Steve indicated that he thought she might let in, took blood samples from each of them. I covered all the bases that I could.
Investigators also received the forensics report from the crime scene.
Crime lab went clear through the house and checking for fingerprints, and there was no fingerprints in the house that they could find other than Steve Strom and Karen. And that was pretty damaging as far as evidence towards Steve.
Karen's autopsy results also come back and show no evidence of sexual assault, but do confirm strangulation as the cause of death.
Whoever the killer was crushed the victim's neck. This was an aggressive, violent, vicious attack. Karen was scratching and clawing and fighting for her life.
Karen's fingernails are clipped and preserved.
As far as DNA back in 1980, there was not a lot more that they could do. The testing you could do with any sort of evidence was very limited.
The autopsy also provides an idea of when Karen was killed.
The approximate time of death was between 10 p.m. on the night of the 5th and 2 a.m. on the morning of the 6th.
This means it was possible Karen was killed before Steve left to go to work.
The time of death did not give Steve a strong alibi.
By his own statements, it was after midnight when he went to work, so he was at home during that period of time.
Armed with this new information, investigators reach out to get Steve in for another interview, and he makes a surprise request.
Steve requested to take a polygraph. He said that he was innocent, he didn't kill his wife. Polygraphs are not admissible into court, but it would also have been a good tool to see if he was lying or not. We did a polygraph and asked him if he knew who killed his wife, if he killed his wife, and if she was dead when he went to work. According to the polygraph operator, on those particular questions, he was extremely negative as far as being truthful.
Failing the polygraph was pretty damning to Steve, and we were more and more convinced that Steve was involved in this murder.
Detectives still need more evidence in order to charge Steve with Karen's murder.
I interviewed some of the people she worked with. They had indicated that numerous times saw her with bruises when she came to work. At one time, that she had bruises on her neck, and that she made a comment to them that Steve had choked her. She felt that she was lucky to be alive.
The co-worker's account is the final evidence police need to charge Steve, and a warrant is issued for his arrest.
We went to arrest him at work, but he was not there. One of the co-workers told us Steve was with a friend down in North Salt Lake in an apartment. They had indicated that he was worried that we were coming after him. He was possibly going to be violent and resist arrest. We were worried that if we came to the door, he was going to shoot us.
Police proceed to the apartment address with caution and establish a safety perimeter around the building.
We knew he had guns, that he might be violent. We were anticipating the possibility of it being a very difficult arrest.
Police investigating the murder of Karen Strong are preparing to arrest their main suspect, her estranged husband, Steve.
He had been known to have a weapon. It was a .357 Magnum. We was told that Steve had also made a comment to one of his co-workers that if the police come to get him, he was going to take a couple of pigs with him.
Having that information made us feel very nervous about approaching him.
Police maintain their distance, fearful of a violent confrontation.
There was a SWAT team that was organized that had surrounded the apartment. After several phone calls into the apartment, Steve wasn't cooperative.
Steve refuses to answer police phone calls. 3 hours tick by without a resolution before Steve finally answers.
Finally, he was convinced to come out peacefully.
2 months after his wife was killed, Steve is finally arrested for Karen's murder. The news quickly spreads to her loved ones.
The whole family, when they found out Steve was arrested, kind of breathed a sigh of relief. Good. You know, it was one step closer to being over.
After 2 months of investigation, prosecutors believe they have enough evidence to convict Steve of killing his 25-year-old wife.
There was significant pieces of evidence that pointed at Steve Strong circumstantially. It appeared that he had opportunity, didn't have a good alibi. He had motivation, potentially jealousy. He had history of domestic violence, particularly when Steve would drink. You had the incident where the co-worker saw Karen with strangulation marks on her neck, and Karen had told her it was Steve Strong that did it. So that was a significant component to the case. Put all the pieces of the puzzle together, and it did look like they've got a reasonable likelihood of conviction.
Steve is held on remand for 6 months as prosecutors prepare their case. But just before the trial is set to begin, Steve's defense attorney asked the judge to exclude the testimony from Karen's coworker about Steve strangling Karen.
The defense said the coworker didn't actually see it. The coworker is only reporting what Karen told her in what's known as double hearsay. And the judge made an evidentiary ruling that disallowed prosecutors from using that evidence or information at trial.
And that was kind of a shocker to me because that was one of our key pieces of evidence. The interviews where people had seen the bruises, she had told them who gave her the bruises. Unfortunately, all of that comes out to be hearsay evidence and was not going to be admissible to court.
Without an eyewitness to abuse, prosecutors have a hole in their case against Steve.
Without that information, they don't have enough evidence to persuade a jury beyond a reasonable doubt that he killed Karen. And if they go forward and lose, Steve Strong, because of double jeopardy, could never be prosecuted again for Karen's murder.
Prosecutors make the difficult decision to drop the charges and let Steve walk free.
When I found out the charges wouldn't hold, my heart just sank. It was like, what? Why is this happening? Show me why this is happening, because I can't wrap myself around this. I just didn't understand why they didn't have the evidence.
Coco was very upset that we had released him, and so was I, but most of the evidence that we had against him was circumstantial evidence. We didn't have any hard evidence towards Steve.
For the next 4 months, detectives continue digging, trying to find the evidence they need to close the case.
I did a lot of running around during that time, interviewing people and trying to find more evidence. However, most of the stuff we were getting was still hearsay.
By the time the 1-year anniversary of Karen's murder comes, little hope remains.
I felt that I had done everything that I could. My main thing at the time was making sure that I preserved all the evidence we had collected, so if something did come up later, we would be able to use it.
In the summer of 1981, the hunt for Karen's killer goes cold.
A year went by, another year went by, and I'd call anything, do you have anything new? Nothing, Coco, nothing. And it's like, did he really get away with it?
The case remains cold for more than 2 decades, but police in Woods Cross never forget the murder of Karen Strom.
I retired in 2005. However, I have to admit that I was still upset about the fact that I could not tie Steve to the murder.
In 2006, 26 years after the crime, new detectives take a fresh look.
This case was a high-profile case, and at one time there had been a lull in the caseload, so I had asked if I could focus all my time on this case. And knowing that there was new developments in science, I figured that it was the right time to pick this up, because if this case could be solved, it could be solved now. I went through the evidence looking for specific items that could be tested. The items that we sent into the lab for examination first were Karen's fingernails.
Police in 1980 found material under Karen's fingernails, but had no way of testing it. Could this hold the key to identifying Karen's killer?
We was quite worried that the evidence had degraded. I mean, it had been 26 years.
The crime lab tests Karen's fingernails, searching for her attacker's DNA.
When those results came back, it was a bombshell. There was DNA of Steve Strom underneath Karen's fingernails, but also there was unexpected DNA evidence underneath Karen Strom's fingernails. And guess what? We have a new suspect.
Investigators who have reopened the cold case murder of Karen Strom have just received their first clue in more than 25 years. DNA from under Karen's fingernails has been traced to 2 different men, her husband, Steve Strom, and someone on the original investigators' radar.
That DNA belonged to Ed Owens. The fact that Ed Owens's DNA was underneath Karen Strom's fingernails, it was shocking.
Ed Owens was Steve's friend and co-worker. Ed's blood had been collected in 1980, when police first considered him a suspect.
There was no recent contact between the two that anyone was aware of. We got to dig a little bit deeper into Ed Owens as a realistic suspect.
The presence of Ed and Steve's DNA is evidence to investigators the men had contact with Karen. But is it a sign that one or both had killed her? In search of answers, detectives track down the now 56-year-old Owens.
Ed and his wife were currently living in Falls Church, Virginia. Initially, when I was talking with Ed, he started asking me questions as far as who the suspect was and any new developments in the case. I was suspicious when talking to Ed because of the questions that he was asking me. I wanted him to come into Woods Cross and meet with me and discuss this matter face to face.
Ed Owens agrees to come back to speak with investigators the following week. Detectives also reach out to the now 53-year-old Steve Strom.
Steve had moved to Henderson, Nevada. I contacted Steve and asked him if he would come up from Henderson and meet with me and go over his statement that he gave back in 1980. He wasn't at all that cooperative. He said that for years he's been telling the authorities that he didn't do it, and he believed that we was still after him.
For prosecutors, Steve's DNA under Karen's fingernails does not, in fact, strengthen the case against him.
It was not new to learn he was with Karen on the night that she had been murdered. We're now looking at this from what can the science show us? Who can we show did what based upon this evidence? So now we need to take the next level of testing and figure out what type of DNA are we talking about.
Detectives resubmit the fingernail DNA for a more detailed analysis. And the forensics lab has another surprise in store for investigators.
It was determined that Steve's sample was very minute and Ed's was the dominant sample. And the substance of Ed's was seminal fluid. I was a little shocked about that.
Steve and Ed were close friends, but there was no relationship between him and Karen.
Karen's autopsy had shown no evidence of sexual assault, so investigators are surprised by the indication of sexual activity.
That was unexpected. Why is Ed Owens' seminal fluid underneath Karen Strom's fingernails? What happened here? Was this consensual sex that then went awry? Was it not consensual sex? Was this a forced sexual assault situation?
In the 1980 investigation, Ed's alibi put him at a bar with friends when Karen was killed.
I contacted the co-workers, people that had been to the bar with Ed on the night of the homicide. Both of the witnesses was unable to say whether Ed was at the bar the whole time.
The co-workers had also noticed the scratches on Ed's hands and face the day after Karen's murder.
Ed was asked how he obtained those injuries, and he said that he was playing with his dog.
Strikingly, that statement contradicts the one Ed gave to detectives 26 years prior.
Ed had said that those scratches were obtained by working on a lathe machine. This was raising some red flags as far as Ed's involvement in this matter.
Detectives are eager to talk to Ed themselves, but he fails to arrive for his scheduled interview.
Ed just mysteriously turned up missing 2 days after he had spoken with me. Left a note for his wife. It was a goodbye note. Well, after hearing this, I subpoenaed some banking records of Ed's, and through those records, we determined that he crossed the border into Mexico. An innocent person just wouldn't up and leave his family and flee.
Detectives get another surprise when they dig deeper into Ed's background.
Back in 1980, the investigators ran a background check on Ed Owens in Utah. I, however, ran the national database on Ed Owens and found that Ed had been arrested in California in 1973 and charged with attempted murder.
A man raped a girl on the beach, strangled her, and then he stabbed her with a screwdriver and left her for dead. Ed Owens is charged and arrested, did go to trial, but Ed Owens' mother gave him an alibi. So the jury did not convict Ed Owens. Even though Ed hadn't been convicted, pieces of the puzzle just start to fall into place. We believe Ed's the killer.
An arrest warrant is issued for Ed Owens for the murder of Karen Strom.
When Sergeant Benson called me and said, "Coco, are you sitting down?" He goes, "Do you know who Ed Owens is?" I said, "I've never heard of him." And he said, "Coco, that's who killed your sister." I was shocked. All these years thinking of Steve, I was stunned. I was like, really? It was like starting all over again from scratch. Who's Ed Owens and how did he know my sister?
It was kind of a shocker to me because I was totally convinced that it was Steve.
With Ed Owens in Mexico, investigators strategize how to get him back to face justice.
I made contact with Ed's mother, advised her that I had a warrant of arrest for him, and that he could either come in voluntarily to meet with me or his picture would be on the 5 o'clock news.
And then, interestingly enough, Ed Owens then shows up. He came back to Utah, came walking in the door.
I was surprised that Ed actually showed up to the office. I believe that he was trying to put on this persona for his family of what type of a person he was. At that time, I took him to an interview room and attempted to get a statement from Ed. However, he lawyered up and didn't want to make a statement.
On March 14th, 2007, after 2.5 decades, Ed Owens is arrested and charged with the murder of Karen Strom.
Our case is looking pretty good to us at this point in time. We've got science now backing us up. We've decimated his alibi. We've got the evidence of flight. So a lot of things were stacking up in favor of a conviction.
But then, 3 weeks before the trial, prosecutors are thrown another curveball when they learn of Ed's defense.
The defense's contention was going to be that Karen was having an affair with Ed. Steve became jealous and enraged about it. Steve went home and killed her.
The defense attorney was claiming that seminal fluid of Ed's only shows that he had had an affair with Karen, not that he'd actually killed her.
It's a jolt. We were kind of blown away. Ed had never, ever come forward with that story before. This was something new, so it opened up a new can of worms.
Prosecutors know this defense could be enough to raise reasonable doubt to a jury, especially since Steve had originally been charged with Karen's murder. But how could they disprove the defense's claims?
Is there a smoking gun with this case? We got to find it. We now need to regroup. So again, like they did back in 1980, we dismissed the case without prejudice as we're getting close to trial. That was not an easy decision to make, but we knew it was the right thing to do. We were confident we had the right guy, but at that point in time, we weren't confident we had a case where we were going to be able to secure a conviction. So Ed Owens walked away a free man. That was a tough pill to swallow because we knew he wasn't innocent. Can we prove it?
When the case got dismissed, it was very frustrating. When Ed walked out, I was ticked off, to say the least. However, this wasn't the end for us. We were even more determined that we were going to bring him to justice.
26 years after the murder of Karen Strom, police have arrested their second suspect in the crime, Ed Owens. But prosecutors are forced to drop charges against Ed, leaving Karen's family desperate for justice.
After they released Ed Owens, I told Troy, please don't give up, you guys. Come on, there's got to be something. Please don't give up.
I made a promise to Coco Saltzgiver. We're not giving up on the case. We're not abandoning it. Dismissal without prejudice means it can be refiled. We knew Ed Owens did it. We just wanted to get to the point where we knew we could actually prove it.
Detectives re-interview those who knew Karen to find out if she really could have been having an affair with Ed Owens before she was killed.
In all the witnesses that I talked to, it was pretty obvious that Steve, being as jealous as he was, and also Karen's relationship with Buff, Karen would not be having an affair with Ed Owens.
With no evidence of sexual assault found during Karen's autopsy, prosecutors need to establish an alternate theory to Ed's claim of an affair.
So why is Ed Owens' seminal fluid underneath Karen Strom's fingernails? The best theory that we had is Ed Owens went into Karen Strom and Steve Strom's home that night in the summer of 1980 with intent to sexually assault her. That Karen successfully stopped him. I believe that that's probably the best answer because there was no genital injury to our victim, Karen Strom. Yet there's a hell of a struggle. And the way he crushed her neck, it's in anger. He didn't get what he wanted.
Prosecutors know they only have one shot at making Ed pay for his crime, and they'll need hard evidence to convince a jury.
We can't let him get away with it now again for what he did in 1980. We had to continue to focus in on that crime scene, focus in on Karen's body, go through all the evidence again, looking at every crime scene photo that we had, blowing things up. It's there. We're not going to give up until we find it.
Investigators spend weeks examining the evidence in minute detail. Then, they catch something on the underwear Karen was wearing the night she was killed.
One of the things that we did notice was there were some very tiny droplets that had never been analyzed. They'd kind of been overlooked.
We submitted those to the crime lab. We did not know exactly what it was.
When those results came back, another one of these aha moments, that material that was on Karen Strom's panties was Ed Owens' blood. And now we've got this. This was not a consensual sexual encounter.
It's the final piece prosecutors are looking for. Ed Owens is picked up and recharged with Karen's murder.
When Ed Owens was rearrested, it was a great feeling. Now we felt like our case was ready for prime time.
At trial, in front of Karen's family, prosecutors present how the crime unfolded.
Ed had gone to the bar and, knowing that Steve was coming into work, slipped out of the bar and then went to the Strom residence to sexually assault Karen. Struggle ensued. She started lashing out at him. He ended up grabbing her by the throat, killed her, then went back to the bar with his co-workers, using them as an alibi.
Sitting through that trial and watching the evidence they had, it was horrific what he did to her. Oh my God, she must have been terrified. But she fought. Oh, she fought hard.
Who is the best witness against Ed Owens? It's Karen Strom. By the fight she put up and the evidence she gathered, part of what she got out of him when she gouged him was his blood.
The defense argues that Ed is innocent and that Steve killed Karen out of jealousy.
Ed seemed like he was very cocky and that he was confident that he was going to beat this case.
The judge let me address him at the trial. I said, "You took my sister from me. You took my best friend. You took the person I feel safe with in the world. You took that from me." And he's smiling at me. He was smiling the whole time.
After a 7-day trial, the jury takes just 9 hours to come to a decision. On April 1st, 2009, the jury returns their verdict.
When they said guilty, I just, yes! You know, and then I said, "Karen, we did it. Sissy, we did it. We got him."
There were a lot of people that waited many, many years for justice with this case. When the jury said guilty, it's a sense of relief, a sense of accomplishment, a sense of justice for the victim.
Almost 30 years after Karen Strom was killed, Ed Owens is sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole.
His first parole hearing will be in 2032. Ed at that time will be in his upper 80s. Ed will essentially be spending the rest of his life in jail.
For Karen's loved ones, Ed may have taken her life, but he can never take Karen from their hearts.
I think of Karen all the time. I have a picture of her on my bookshelf, and I know her energy is still there. I can feel it. She was just so kind and so caring. She was a beautiful person, a beautiful soul. You can never be the same again when somebody's ripped out of your life like that. And you have that hole, but you can heal from something like this. It is possible. But you fill that hole with life. And you hope you live a good life for her too, because she didn't get to.
A selfless and caring mother of 3.
She always thought about other people. She was just a bright light shining.
Viciously murdered in her own home.
Her bedroom was incredibly blood-soaked, unlike I'd ever seen before. There was anger involved in this crime.
I remember just screaming.
Investigators are sent down a rabbit hole of suspects.
She didn't like him, she didn't trust him.
It raised a red flag that there might be some sort of affair going on.
She was jealous of her life, of what she had.
There was clearly bad blood between them.
Every lead appears to turn into a dead end.
It just stalled.
That was disheartening.
Until a surprising witness comes forward.
It was unbelievable.
It was the break we were looking for.
Exposing a killer no one saw coming.
I was pretty shocked.
I just remember being sick to my stomach.
Cortland Township lies in the heart of Michigan.
It's fairly rural, nice, pleasant, kind of a good hometown feel. It's one of those areas that everybody gets along, and when you're driving by their house, they're waving at you, and it's just peaceful and quiet.
This quaint community is stunned on Saturday, August 5th, 2006, when the Kent County Sheriff's Office receives a 911 call.
Emergency.
My daughter, we just found her in bed, and she's got a lash on her arm, and she's all bloody.
Just before 5 o'clock, we received a call of a potential suicide at the Pagel residence.
Officers are immediately dispatched to the home of 41-year-old Renee Pagel.
We were met by Renee's stepmother and her father. They were both just in shock. Renee's father indicated that his daughter was in her bedroom. When I first walked into the bedroom, I observed Renee laying on the bed. I could just remember seeing all the blood-soaked sheets, her shirt. There's blood on her face. It was obvious that Renee Pagel was deceased, and it wasn't a suicide. This was a homicide.
Officers secure the scene as homicide detectives arrive to investigate.
Her bedroom was incredibly blood-soaked, unlike I'd ever seen before. The bed was covered with blood. There was blood spatter on the walls, on the ceiling.
She was stabbed multiple times. I was pretty shocked by the amount of wounds that she had. When I looked at her hand, I saw a large laceration almost in the middle of her hand to be, in my opinion, a defensive wound. Renee was in the fight for her life. Unfortunately, she had lost.
For detectives, the viciousness of the attack is a clue itself.
It appears to us it's a crime of passion. Somebody has something against this victim, so much so that they want to brutalize this person as much as they possibly could.
This was personal.
Somebody went into that residence to murder Renee.
Who in Renee's life would want to attack her and could be capable of such violence? Born in 1965, Renee's spirit was always full of joy.
Renee was the most generous person I have ever known. She loved life. She was always smiling.
Renee Pagel devoted her life to helping others.
She was a nurse practitioner. She had done medical mission trips around the world, and then she also worked at a homeless clinic here in town. She always thought about other people.
Renee's greatest joy was being a mother of 3.
She loved her kids so much. She was a great mom.
Recently separated from Michael, her husband of 10 years, Renee shared custody of her children while always remaining a devoted mother.
The last couple years, because she wanted to be home with her kids and wanted to have some more normal hours, she chose to teach at a technical center.
Even as a teacher, Renee found new ways to help people.
One of her students had come into class one day and was really down, and Renee said, "What's the matter?" And she said, "Well, my dad is dying. He needs a kidney." And so Renee agreed to give her kidney to this man who she had never met. She was just so selfless. And it manifested itself in so many ways.
Renee had undergone the kidney transplant surgery just 5 days before her stunning death.
So she was already in a weakened state when she was attacked.
Could the killer have timed the attack, knowing that Renee would be recuperating? Detectives look closer at her injuries, hoping they'll reveal telling details about the murder weapon.
It seemed to be a very strong and well-made knife and large. Just the amount of damage it did to the victim's body, it was at least an inch and a half blade that was wide.
There's no sign of the knife, but forensic technicians searched the bedroom for other evidence.
There was large amounts of blood that our scientific support unit had to collect, and they collected trace evidence like hairs and fibers for testing.
Detectives continue to search the rest of the home.
What struck me about this case that was kind of odd, there was no other areas in the house that were disturbed, that were bloody or anything tracked through the home. It seemed to be very honed in on just her bedroom.
It really kind of puzzled us as investigators.
It was the most bizarre scene I've ever been on.
This person, in my opinion, had to know that they had to cover their tracks, and I think it was planned, and they thought this out ahead of time.
As forensics continue their work, detectives speak with Renee's parents.
Her father, obviously, he was extremely upset. What he had just found out, his daughter brutally murdered.
Detectives ask her father to help them put together a picture of Renee's last known movements.
He last saw her the night before around 4 or 5 in the evening when he was picking up the children and bringing them to their father's house, who lived approximately 15 to 20 minutes away from Renee.
With Renee's children safe with their father at the time of the murder, she was home alone.
He told us he spoke with her on the phone around 8 or 9 in the evening, just checked in on her because obviously he had a lot of concern of her health.
Based on the state of the body, detectives believe Renee was murdered sometime between 11 p.m. and 6 a.m. They ask her parents who Renee might have seen last.
Her father talked to me about a tenant, Mike Decker, who was an acquaintance of Renee that has been living on the property for approximately 1.5 years, 2 years. Also, he did speak about a contentious divorce with her husband, Michael, that she was going through. Mike wanted full custody. Mike wanted the home. Mike wanted to not work and have Renee work and be the provider. So that obviously piqued my interest.
Could either of these men have possibly wanted Renee dead? Detectives know they have to hit the ground running right away.
We have to find out who all these people are and go and start to question them to try to find out where they were on the night of the murder.
Coming up, investigators uncover an ominous obsession.
There was a lot of writings about his hatred for Renee.
Alarming secrets.
The ceiling had a hidden compartment.
Renee told me how betrayed she felt.
She was extremely upset. She was very hurt by this.
And the truth blindsides everyone.
We've never had a break like this.
It was, you're not gonna believe this. Just disbelief.
I'm still reeling from that one.
Detectives in a small Michigan town are investigating the vicious murder of 41-year-old mother of 3, Renee Pagel. Police are looking into 2 possible suspects, her tenant and her estranged husband. They first turn their attention to Renee's ex, Michael Pagel.
In the beginning, they seemed like your average all-American couple.
She did tell me that she did love him. She wanted marriage in a family, and he was the opportunity.
She looked at him, I think the words were the knight in shining armor. And speaking to friends of the family, they described Michael as a fantastic dad. that he was always about his children. Nobody said anything bad about him.
Married life seemed like a dream come true until cracks started to appear.
When I interviewed numerous people, I was told that Mike didn't want a full-time job. Mike wanted to be at home with the kids and let Renee do everything and support him. They were just having a lot of issues back and forth with one another. In early 2005, Mike abruptly surprised Renee with divorce papers.
She was very shocked and just sickened to the core.
There had been some turmoil in the past between them, but in her mind, things were actually getting better. They were kind of turning around, so she was blindsided by it.
She said to me, he expected, I mean expected, the house, the kids, and $2,000 a month.
In June 2006, just 7 weeks before she was murdered, Renee and Michael had their day in divorce court.
When the judge ruled in her favor and said that she got the kids, she got the house, and he was going to have to get a better paying job, something flipped in him.
Was Michael so angered by the ruling that he killed Renee in a furious rage?
There were a lot of things that put him at the top of our list as a potential suspect that had killed Renee.
Detectives go to question Michael.
When we arrived at Mike's house, he was not there. His mother said that he should be back shortly. And I said, just want to get an idea of what were you guys doing last night? And she said, well, Mike had the kids. They were having a fortnight in the living room where Mike had set up some pillows and some blankets. Then she stated about 8 in the morning, she and Michael had a brief conversation, and then they went about their day. So basically, she was giving him an alibi that he was home all night with the kids.
As police finish the interview with his mother, Michael arrives.
I explained to him that something had happened to Renee, and we would like to speak to you about this. When Michael was told that she had passed away, there was no reaction out of him. And immediately, without me even going any further, Michael reached into his wallet and gave me an attorney card and said, yeah, I've been told not to talk to the police. Here's my attorney. So I thought that was extremely odd that Michael didn't want to dig further into what happened to Renee.
After consulting with his divorce attorney, he told investigators he wouldn't answer any questions.
Michael's reticence to cooperate is a red flag. And on August 6th, the day after Renee's murder, police arrive at his home with a search warrant.
We're looking for any type of knife that may have been used during the murder. We took a lot of knives from the house, but we found no knives that matched the length and the size and the different characteristics of the knife that was used.
Police also collect hair samples and fingerprints from Michael.
We wanted to get photos of his body to make sure that there was no cuts or anything on him. We wanted to look at clothing to see if there was any blood trace evidence anywhere.
All the forensic evidence that we collected, we never found anything that was useful in our investigation.
All the knives in his home were examined, and there was nothing to link them to this crime.
We had no murder weapon. We had no real evidence. There was nothing. It was clean.
So when we left that search warrant, I would say we really came out empty-handed. We didn't have anything to tie this murder to Mike Pagel.
Despite his potential motive, Michael Pagel drops off detectives' list of suspects, while news of Renee's violent death quickly spreads across town.
Her friend called me and said, Chris, Renee's dead. It was surreal. I remember curling up in a fetal position and just screaming. I screamed. I was angry.
As her friends and loved ones struggle with her death, Renee's autopsy report comes in.
Cause of death was blunt force trauma, homicide. It was a large, heavy-duty knife that was used on her.
The autopsy revealed upwards of 50 stab wounds. There were numerous lacerations to the hands and the feet, suggesting defensive wounds.
She was stabbed over 50 times. I'm still reeling from that one. It was so brutal.
Detectives continue their investigation and now focus their attention on Renee's tenant, Mike Decker.
She had this barn that had an upstairs apartment, and he was a renter.
The barn was about 75 yards away from the main home. He could have been involved, he could have been a witness, he could have overheard something. One of her friends believed that the week of her surgery, Renee was going to have pizza with Mike Decker, and that she felt that there was some type of maybe a relationship going on. So that sparked our interest. I mean, if he's having a relationship with Renee, did something happen to cause him to get upset and potentially do this horrific crime? We had to find him immediately.
Two days into the investigation of Renee Pagel's murder, detectives have a possible suspect. Her tenant, Mike Decker, who's rumored to be romantically involved with Renee. Detectives interview Mike at his apartment on Renee's property.
At first, I kind of thought loner, 30-year-old gentleman, unemployed, living above a barn. I thought that was kind of odd. When we were speaking to Mr. Decker, we asked him if he was having a relationship with Renee, romantic or whatnot.
Mike said that the relationship is more of a friendship or a kindness thing, no romantic involvement.
He denied having any dinner with Renee over the past week. He stated that it was actually a month or two before he suggested that they go out for pizza just as friends, but Renee had turned that down because she was busy.
Police ask Mike Decker where he was on the night of the murder.
He stated that he went into a local city to eat by himself, drove back probably between 8 or 9. When he arrived at home, he watches a little bit of TV and then goes to bed between 1 and 2 in the morning.
Detectives ask him if he heard anything that night, especially after what they had found at the crime scene.
We did locate a tire track and a footwear impression in Renee's driveway.
He denied hearing anything from Renee's house.
Mike tells police he didn't notice anything unusual the next morning either.
He woke up in the morning around 9 or 10 and then went to meet with his family to go see a bike race. Part of the problem with Mike Decker's alibi, even though he was cooperative through this process, he was on the property when this murder happened.
With no one to corroborate his alibi, police get a warrant to search Mike's apartment.
We seized his pipe from his sink because we wanted to see if there was any blood or trace evidence in there, and then we found a couple of large knives.
The evidence is rushed to the crime lab for analysis.
The knives and the pipe forensically did not show anything. There were no signs of blood.
We found no knives that matched the type of knife that was used.
But still, Mike cannot be ruled out. A week after the homicide, detectives interview him again, this time at the sheriff's office.
He showed no issues of concern of us looking at him as a potential suspect from gathering any type of physical evidence from him. We even offered him a polygraph, and Mr. Decker submitted to that also and passed without any deceit.
With nothing tying Mike Decker to the crime, investigators let him go. Searching for any further clues about Renee, detectives reach out to her parents once again, and in turn, get a lead on a new suspect, Renee's own sister, Michelle.
Renee's father stated that the relationship between Renee and Michelle was strained. He mentioned that Michelle was jealous of Renee's life, of what she had.
She wanted a successful career, a family, a home, all of those things.
Renee and Michelle's problems went beyond sibling rivalry.
During the divorce, Renee's attorney was able to subpoena the phone records of Michael Pagel. So he turned those over to Renee.
When she examined phone records, she learned that Mike and Michelle were talking frequently.
So she was extremely upset. She was very hurt by this.
There was such significant communication between Mike Pagel and the sister Michelle that it raised a red flag to us right away that there might be some sort of affair going on.
Renee told me how betrayed she felt by her sister. She really struggled with that.
During the interviews with numerous people, it was mentioned that Michelle potentially was having a relationship with Michael. Once I learned that, it's obviously somebody we wanted to look at.
Michelle is brought in for an interview. And though she says that she is saddened by her sister's death, her answers raise eyebrows with investigators.
She didn't speak very highly of Renee. She was not happy at all the way that Renee was handling the divorce.
Michelle clearly took Mike's side in it and kind of put her sister in the bad light. She felt that Mike was a good father, and it was her sister that was really trying to take advantage of him.
We did ask her if she was in a relationship or had a relationship with Michael, and she completely denied it.
Detectives ask Michelle where she was the night of the murder.
She said she was working into the evening, and that evening she was home with her roommate. Basically, she was stating that she was home the evening of the murder.
Michelle did take a polygraph, and she was found to be truthful and did not appear to have any involvement in the homicide.
With Michelle all but ruled out, investigators discover that she isn't the only family member Renee had issues with.
When I spoke with Renee's parents, it was mentioned that Michael, her soon-to-be ex-husband, had a brother. The brother was Charles Pagel. They called him Bo. And they said that he was very strange, very odd.
He and Renee did not get along. Renee didn't like him. She didn't trust him.
When detectives dig deeper, they uncover something troubling.
We learned from a close friend of Renee that he had been married numerous times, and she believed that maybe Bo had murdered his last wife.
Was Bo a killer? And had he now killed again?
That obviously raised some red flags for us as investigators, and that's somebody we wanted to speak with very quickly.
Detectives investigating the vicious stabbing of Renee Pagel are looking at her estranged husband's brother, Bo Pagel.
Bo was married 3 times in the past, and one of his ex-wives died under suspicious circumstances.
One of Renee's friends gives a statement to police claiming that she believed Bo may have killed his ex-wife.
Obviously, what really sent us his way was the potential murder of his last wife, so that had our attention.
Detectives must determine if Bo could actually be a killer. They look deeper into his background.
Bo was a loner, lived at home with his mom. We learned that he was on-the-road trucker, and he traveled all over the country. He would be gone days at a time.
Investigators also look closer at Bo and Renee's fractured relationship.
There was clearly bad blood between him and Renee, dating back years, going back to the wedding.
We found out that Bo refused to be in the wedding. He was going to be the best man. He did not like her, thought she was not good for Mike, and he didn't approve of it whatsoever. He was outspoken to Michael about even marrying Renee.
And I think the relationship between Bo and Mike was really more of an estranged relationship for the 10 years that Mike and Renee were married.
But after Renee and Michael's separation, everything changed.
I do know that once Mike filed for divorce, he and Bo rekindled that relationship and became pretty close.
Bo was, I believe, happy that Renee was now out of the picture and he could have his brother back.
Could Bo have wanted Renee permanently out of Michael's life? Detectives bring him in for questioning.
So we interviewed Bo, and he denied any knowledge of the murder, denied any involvement.
Bo had said that through the week he was on the road trucking. He got home Thursday night.
Bo's alibi was that he was essentially across the state. He had driven a route the day of the homicide. He had gotten back around 6 o'clock and had gone out with some friends for dinner.
And then afterwards, he stated he went home, spoke to his daughter, and then went to bed.
And then the next morning got up and went canoeing with his daughter.
We contacted his work. We spoke to the family that he actually had dinner with that Friday evening to account for they were with him, what restaurant, until what time.
It pretty much matched up.
Though most of his story checks out, no one can confirm that Bo was at home at the time of Renee's murder. Needing more information, detectives reach out to Bo's daughter.
We confirmed with her that they went on the canoe trip in the morning.
Bo's daughter also puts to rest any suspicion that Bo was responsible for her mother's death.
She gave us details about her mother that we didn't know. She was a diabetic, she had some blood sugar problems, and she really didn't care for going to the doctor. So she didn't seek the medical help that she needed, and that ultimately is what resulted in her death.
She did not suspect Bo of doing anything.
Though Bo's alibi isn't ironclad, there is nothing concrete to link him to Renee's murder, and he is released. It's been 6 weeks since the homicide, and the investigation has ground to a halt.
The reason that we were stuck is because there was no physical evidence that would help tie any one person to this crime. We looked at every person. The estranged husband, his brother Bo, Renee's sister, and Renee's tenant. And there was nothing to link them to this crime.
Police continue investigating for many months, but with no fresh leads, the case goes cold.
It just stalled. There was a point where I felt that we would never have a conclusion in this case.
It was just sad that we couldn't bring closure to Renee and to her family.
As the months went by, I was just like, what is going on?
Once the months turns into years, that was disheartening.
For 13 years, there are no new developments in the case. But through it all, Renee's best friend never gives up hope.
We created a website in the year 2007, and it was a really therapeutic way for people to come and grieve and share stories. And that website was very effective in getting the word out about Renee's murder, doing whatever it took to find justice for Renee.
In a stunning turn of events, on November 18th, 2019, Chris Crandall receives a surprising message on social media.
Mike's brother, Bo, sent me a friend request. And of course, I was very startled. And it was just after that I got a message from Bo. All of a sudden, after all these years, Bo wanted to talk.
Years after Renee Pagel is viciously stabbed to death, her best friend receives a message from Renee's brother-in-law, Bo Pagel, wanting to talk.
And of course, I called the police and let them know that Bo had contacted me.
So we arranged to have the conversation between Chris and Bo recorded.
As a former suspect in Renee's murder, was Bo about to confess?
He called me clearly wanting to let it be known that Mike was losing it. Bo was afraid that he would be Mike's next victim. And I said to Bo, who do you think Mike's first victim was? And he danced around that and wouldn't answer it.
And Bo said, I believe Mike will kill me.
And it was then that I was entertaining the idea that Mike was not so innocent.
I listened to that conversation and was very concerned. Bo believes Mike's capable of killing somebody. We felt this was a big break. We now knew that Bo may have information about whether or not Mike did commit murder.
On February 3rd, 2020, 2 months after his conversation with Chris Crandall, police formally interview Bo.
I just asked him to tell us what he knew about anybody being involved in Renee's murder, and he quickly told us that Mike Pagel was responsible for Renee's murder.
It's a stunning revelation.
It was the break we were looking for. It was the big piece of information that we needed.
Knowing this is their chance to finally solve Renee's murder, police get an official statement from Bo.
Bo laid out the story for us. Back in 2011, Bo and Mike decided to go out. Mike grabbed a 6-pack of beer, and they just drove around and talked as brothers. And they stopped over the top of one bridge over a small river, and in the midst of that conversation, Mike produced a bag, and inside the bag was a knife that was wrapped in a cloth, and Mike made the comment to Bo of, "This is how I finalized my divorce," which was a complete shock to Bo. And it immediately made Bo angry. He said, "I believed you for all these years, we've supported you, and come to find out you're the one responsible. I can't believe you would have done that." And I think this made Mike angry. He expected Bo to congratulate him. So the way Bo described it was out of frustration. Mike took the knife and threw it into the river. Bo described it as about a 12-inch long, bigger knife, and it appeared to be a very strong, sturdy knife.
Investigators get Bo to show them exactly where Michael had thrown the knife.
There was quite a bit of old metal, various pieces of cars and other things inside the river, and in my opinion, that wasn't a safe diving environment. We had to find another means to search the bottom of the river.
Police wonder if they will be able to recover a knife that has been in the water for 9 years. Then, one of the detectives comes up with an idea.
It's called a rare earth magnet. The magnet is something that I've had at home, and it just came to mind as an option for a way to search the watery area and to grab whatever metal pieces were on the bottom of the river.
It was tremendously impressive for him to come up with his own homemade magnet device. And, you know, he concocted his own fishing line and pulling it through the stream, which is remarkable.
Police spend 3 days painstakingly dragging the riverbed with no success.
So we were on our last few passes of the river, and I began pulling toward my side, and then it was, "You're not gonna believe this," just disbelief. The knife was stuck to the magnet, and it was exactly as Bo described.
It was late in the day, I want to say 3 or 4 o'clock, and got the phone call. He got the knife. I'm like, no, are you kidding me? He got the knife, no.
And this is the magnet and the knife exactly as we found it.
It was awesome. It was everything you could hope for when you're investigating a case, to get that piece of evidence that you know you need, that you really weren't sure if it was going to be there, but there it is.
Police now need to confirm if the knife found matches the knife used in Renee Pagel's murder.
We brought it down to the medical examiner's office. They viewed it and instantly said, absolutely. it's consistent with the injuries that are on Renee's body. We were very confident we had the murder weapon.
Unbelievable. We've never had a break like this. We got the needle in the haystack by finding the knife, and now we had a murder weapon that backed up what a witness said.
It allowed us to validate Bo's statement that that knife was thrown in that water by Mike Pagel.
On February 6th, 2020, 13 years after Renee's death, Michael Pagel is officially charged with her murder.
So this case was going to hinge a lot on the testimony of Bo, but it's still circumstantial evidence. And is the jury going to believe him or not?
In the midst of that, the defense attorneys asked if we would consider a plea offer. When someone asks for a plea, it usually means that they're willing to tell the truth. And in this case, that was one of the conditions, is we wanted to hear the truth as part of the plea agreement.
The prosecution agrees to a plea deal of second-degree murder and a minimum of 25 years in prison.
We wanted to get a term of years to make sure he was old enough that he would never harm anyone again.
On May 20th, 2020, 55-year-old Michael Pagel agrees to plead guilty to second-degree murder, avoiding a trial by jury. But at his plea hearing, Michael suddenly turns the case on its head.
It was unbelievable. And I just remember being sick to my stomach.
After 13 years of investigating the heinous murder of Renee Pagel, her estranged husband is finally being charged for the brutal crime. But at his plea hearing, Michael makes an admission that takes everyone by surprise.
I hired my brother, Charles Pagel, to kill Renee Pagel. Charles Pagel murdered Renee Pagel.
We were all absolutely shocked when he said that his brother did this.
Mike maintained the fact that Bo was the one responsible. He admitted that he had orchestrated it and that he had planned it, but insisted that Bo was the one that actually did the stabbing, which was a complete shock to us. We had investigated and we found no evidence, nothing to directly tie Bo Pagel to this murder.
Had Bo been hiding his involvement all along? While detectives take another look at him, they also dig for more evidence against Michael. And after several searches of his home, they make a surprising discovery.
At Mike's house, we found the ceiling had a hidden compartment. When we took this down, we found 3 hard drives in this hidden compartment.
Investigators spend time decoding the contents of Michael's hard drives, and what they find is chilling.
In those hard drives, there was journaling.
I would call it strange. It appeared to be written by almost 2 different personalities, one that would talk back and forth to the other.
He talked about planning to divorce, how much he hated her.
There was a lot of writings about his dislike and his hatred for Renee.
Then, weeks later, police track down a crucial witness.
We uncovered a friend who had said that he had gifted a knife to Michael that was substantially similar to the one that was actually found.
And he admitted that he gave it to Mike as a gift, and it was delivered directly to Mike Pagel. So that helped us put the knife in Mike's hands.
So now you have a knife that was found in the river that now a friend is saying had given to Michael and not to Bo.
While the evidence is circumstantial, police believe it strengthens their case even further against Michael.
There was nothing that could back up Michael's story in terms of physical evidence, any other witnesses, anything else other than his word about it. Whereas Bo at least had stuff to back it up. His alibi backed up, and the physical evidence that he provided backed it up. So There's just absolutely nothing that shows that Bo did this. This was Michael Pagel. This was all him that committed this murder that night.
Investigators conclude what likely happened on the night of Renee's murder.
When the children were sleeping, he snuck out of his house and he went over to Renee's.
It's pretty well known that she donated a kidney.
Obviously, she wasn't strong at this point.
She was asleep in bed, and he walked in with that knife and brutally stabbed her.
I believe that Mike no doubt planned this out.
There's no way you leave a crime scene that clean and it's not carefully planned. How he absolutely didn't leave a blood drop, a fingerprint, a mark, any physical evidence.
Bo tells us about Mike commenting that he had worn coveralls and galoshes. So he had taken precaution to not get his clothes bloody, and that he had removed those items and then put them in a garbage bag and left. And that the clothes were later burned.
He's not a stupid man. He knew enough to cover his tracks. He went in there purposely. He had an intent, he had a purpose, and he went in there to kill her, and he did.
There was anger involved in this crime. This was evil.
But why would Michael kill Renee?
I believe Mike Pagel was very upset with the way the divorce was proceeding, that he didn't get sole custody of the children, that he didn't get the family home. Things just weren't going his way.
He's got motive, and if anybody's got rage, it's the about-to-be ex-husband who's not getting what he wanted.
I think that the writing was on the wall for him that this was the end.
On October 5th, 2020, Michael Pagel is sentenced to 25 to 50 years in prison.
I never thought it would take 14 years to bring justice to Renee and to her family. But, you know, you always had in the back of your mind that justice would be served.
It was incredible exhilaration, and I do believe that the information that I provided and the passion that I poured into this did help.
Renee's loved ones will always be inspired by her memory.
The friendship that we had was deep. It was eternal. She brought so much beauty to this world. She was just a bright light shining. Oh, I miss her.